New York's governor says the limousine that crashed and killed 20 people should have been parked for good. Investigators say the limo's driver, Scott Lisanickia, who died in Saturday's crash, did not have a proper license. Federal records also show Prestige Limousines, the company that owns the limo, has been cited for 22 violations in the last 24 months. DeMarco Morgan is at the crash scene in Schoharie, about 25 miles west of Albany, with new information from investigators. DeMarco, good morning.
Brianna, good morning. You were out here with us, so you know just exactly how close I am to that crash site, but we've been pushed back a little further because of the investigation. But police are telling us that the limo that was involved in that crash failed an inspection sometime last month. The NTSB says the Ford Excursion that was carrying 18 people was originally a traditional SUV that was stretched. The board is now examining when and how the vehicle was converted and what caused this tragedy.
Federal investigators are back at the scene of the deadly limo crash in upstate New York today, searching for evidence.
Governor Cuomo just ordered flags to be flown at half-staff to honor the victims. 17 people, the limousine driver and 2 pedestrians, were killed in the accident. CBS 2's Jessica Layton is at the scene in Schoharie with more.
State police investigators back at the scene of pain and death in Schoharie, New York, inspecting the ditch where the white limousine came to a rest. Wooden crosses in the country store parking lot represent the lives lost Saturday after that limo blew through a stop sign and hit 2 pedestrians before barreling into the woods.
Bam, it sounded like a tractor trailer slamming into something.
Roger Mahone was sitting on his porch next door to the Apple Barrel store and cafe and can't get the frantic images of what followed out of his mind.
Oh, it was chaos. People running, people were on their phones, people were, 911, CPR. It was like, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was that many people.
Altogether, 20 were killed. 2 people in the parking lot, the limo driver, and 17 friends on their way to Cooperstown for a 30th birthday celebration.
A lot of people have been asking questions, but overall, you have no evidence yet that there's anything amiss other than a terrible, horrible car crash. But now there is some piece of information that we were looking for, and that is significant, that now makes me think that there should be a much wider investigation. And that comes from Richard Clark. Now, Richard Clark is a very significant person. He was a former U.S. National Coordinator for Security, Infrastructure Protection, and Counterterrorism. He's the guy who was right about bin Laden and al-Qaeda. He was in the Clinton administration as a counterterrorism advisor, and then he was in the Bush administration. And he had been telling them, al-Qaeda is coming. We have to do something. We have to do a principals meeting. We have to get ready. They didn't listen to him, and at times they said, oh, he's got his hair on fire. Turned out he was 100% right. Now, he has voiced some concerns about what could be done to cars remotely. And this is shocking, even if you think that there's nothing untoward in the Michael Hastings story, which is, of course, incredibly possible, right? Even removed from that story, this facts that Richard Clark is giving us is amazing, and it affects all of us. So what is it? Let me explain. He says, there's reason to believe that intelligence agencies for major powers, including the United States, know how to remotely seize control of a car.
Now, with new details on the horrific limo crash that killed 20 people, a criminal investigation is now underway as officials reveal that the limo company failed recent inspections and the driver did not have the right license for that vehicle. Our senior transportation correspondent David Curley is on the scene in Schoharie, New York with the latest. Good morning, David.
Morning, George. The autopsies are still underway and investigators are taking apart that limo, trying to figure out why it crossed this state road at a high rate of speed. Overnight, 2,500 people joining in prayers and tears for the victims of that limousine accident. 17 family members and friends taking part in a 30th birthday celebration, all killed along with the driver and 2 pedestrians. This morning, investigators are narrowing their focus on the stretched limo, the driver, and the company, with New York's governor charging the driver wasn't properly licensed and the limo failed inspection just a month ago.
The owner of the company had no business putting a failed vehicle on the road.
Called the black box of the 2001 stretched Ford Excursion, the airbag control module is being studied, hoping to show the last seconds or milliseconds before the crash, when the limo ran through a stop sign and into this parking lot. No signs of skid marks. The vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed. The engine from this actually went beyond the driver's seat, behind the driver's seat?
That's correct. The engine block was pushed back into the driver's compartment.
But behind the seat?
It's hard to tell because there's so much damage.
Investigators say that this man, Shahid Hussein, owns Prestige, the limousine company. He worked as an FBI informant after being arrested for helping immigrants cheat on driver's tests while he worked for the DMV. For a time, he ran Prestige out of a back room of this low-budget hotel. The company does have a checkered safety record. In 5 safety inspections over the past 2 years, 4 vehicles were put out of service. That's 4 times the national average. Right now, Hussein is out of the country. And as crash investigators search for answers, it appears that some of the victims may have been worried about that limo's condition prior to the crash. According to the New York Times, one of those killed, Aaron McGowan, sent a text to a friend expressing concern, writing, quote, "The motor is making everyone deaf." The company, in a statement, said it offered its condolences and that it has met with federal and state investigators already and plans to offer answers as quickly as possible to questions. George, just the shock of the number of deaths, not just here but across the country, remains on this story.
Whoa, hold on. We didn't know that. Why is this not the biggest revelation in a long, long time? So again, putting Hastings' situation aside for a second, so they can seize control of any of our cars? And what if you have, there's 1.5 million people in the intelligence community. I don't know how many of them have access to this kind of power, but I assume not that many, but a decent amount. How about if they got an ex-wife or a guy they hate? They can remotely control your cars? And he continues. What has been revealed as a result of some research at universities is that it's relatively easy to hack your way into the control system of a car and to do such things as cause acceleration when the driver doesn't want acceleration, to throw on brakes when the driver doesn't want the brakes on, to launch an airbag. You can do some really highly destructive things now through hacking a car, and it's not that hard.
The deadliest transportation crash in the United States in nearly a decade. 20 people killed in upstate New York, most of them in a limousine on the way to their birthday party. And tonight, New York's governor says that limo should have never been on the road.
Multiple ambulances, folks, midlife on standby.
2 days after a deadly crash killed 20 people on their way to a birthday celebration, heartache turned to anger.
The owner of the company had no business putting a failed vehicle on the road.
When Governor Andrew Cuomo revealed disturbing new details about the vehicle and its driver while attending the Columbus Day parade.
That vehicle was inspected by the New York State Department of Transportation last month and failed inspection and was not supposed to be on the road.
The state immediately ordered the owner of the limo, Prestige Limousine, to shut down, noting that driver, 53-year-old Scott Licentia, didn't even have the appropriate license to drive the limo. The young partygoers, including 4 sisters, were reportedly texting about the limo's shoddy condition before the crash, had originally booked a bus, but after it broke down, they boarded the supersized limo. Federal records show the owner of Prestige, Shahid Hussein, had 5 inspections of his oversized fleet. 4 were pulled from service over the last 2 years. Public records show a man with the same name was an FBI informant who testified in 2 high-profile terrorism cases. Robert Sumwalt is the head of the NTSB.
If an entire engine block is moved back and basically crushed, moved back past the driver's seat, that would indicate there was a lot of force and energy involved in that crash.
Although limousine drivers are required to wear seatbelts, passengers are not. Authorities did not say how fast the limo was traveling or speculate on what caused the limo to run the stop sign, but it doesn't appear the driver applied the brakes. Autopsies were being performed, including one on the driver, to see if drugs or alcohol played a role. The limousine's owner has released a statement offering condolences and saying it will look to provide answers as soon as possible.
Now, look, I had read similar things, but it was on some blog somewhere, and I thought, well, maybe yes, maybe no, right? This is Richard Clarke. He was our top counterterrorism advisor. He had every piece of information available to him when he was inside the United States government. He says doing it is easy. We didn't sign on for that. Did you sign on for the government being able to control your car remotely? Who in their right mind would agree to that? It gets even scarier. He says, so if there were a cyber attack on the car, and I'm not saying there was, I think whoever did it would probably get away with it. Now, if you thought the rest of it was bad, it turns out it's incredibly easy to get away with it, almost impossible to detect. Why is the whole country not talking about this? Is Richard Clarke wrong? If he is, I'd like to see 10 other guys counter him on it. If he's not wrong, okay, they can destroy any of our cars, whoever they are. I'm not saying it's Obama, I'm not saying it's the government, I'm not saying it's the FBI, but obviously some people can do it. They have this enormous power and you can't detect it. All right, continuing. He says, I'm not a conspiracy guy. In fact, I've spent most of my life knocking down conspiracy theories. But my rule has always been you don't knock down a conspiracy theory until you can prove it wrong. And in the case of Michael Hastings, so he is specifically talking about this case. In the case of Michael Hastings, what evidence is available publicly is consistent with a car cyber attack. And the problem with that is you can't prove it. Now think about why Richard Clarke's even saying this in the first place. He doesn't have to say this, and in fact, he's probably going to get a lot of heat for saying this. But he's saying it anyway. I don't know if he knows anything more than we know. But even this is incredibly troubling. Furthermore, he says, I think you'd probably need the very best of the U.S. government intelligence or law enforcement officials to discover it. But now, in this case, unfortunately, those are among the different people that people suspect. They're worried that Michael Hastings was going to write about the intelligence community. In fact, there's an email from Michael Hastings, which was sent to BuzzFeed, and it was also sent to the Young Turks, where he said, I'm worried that the FBI is investigating me. Now, the FBI says they're not investigating. Who knows, right? But whether it's the FBI or anyone else, he's worried the intelligence community is looking into him. The only people who can detect whether there was a car cyber attack is the intelligence community. And by the way, the LAPD, now a lot of course, immediately, everybody else in the news is like, LAPD said they're not suspecting anything that's, wrong or untoward. But I mean, if I'm the LAPD and I can't detect this, I look at it and I say, yeah, it's a single car crash at 4:30 in the morning. There's no reason to suspect out of the gate that somebody did something to him. But that doesn't mean that the LAPD is right. And it's not even the LAPD saying definitively, no, nothing bad happened here. We investigated and we're positive nothing happened. They just say it looks like a one-person car crash. You're right, that's what it looks like. And here's a former counterterrorism advisor for the United States of America saying, oh, it looks like a car cyber attack and it would be incredibly easy to do and you couldn't detect it. Well, if you're not scared by that, you're not paying attention, that makes, whether they actually did it to Michael Hastings is an entirely different question. But the fact that they have that capability is amazing. And by the way, if we have that capability, how far are the Chinese from being able to have that capability? How far are the Russians from being able to have that capability? Can they do it to people inside Russia? Can they do it to people inside the United States? Are you worried yet? This is not a light person saying this. This is a guy who had access to every top secret document in the United States. Top counterterrorism advisor.